Hey guys, Double Wide 6, and what I have in front of me today is a Honda Harmony lawnmower. It's actually a Harmony 2, and it looks like the fine print there says HRT 216. It has the quadra-cut system, which is the 4 blades or 2 blades stacked, and it also mulches really well. And it has a bag which you can see is lightly used, although it does need some new tires because there doesn't seem to be any tread. I got this lawnmower from a friend of my dad, and basically the problem was that the lawnmower, the transmission is leaking. So everything still works, the engine starts in a pull or two, and you know, these GCV 160 engines that are on these Hondas, you can get a carburetor for these brand new from China for like 15 bucks. So it's probably actually cheaper to get that carburetor than to even take it to a shop and have them clean it, or even clean it yourself. So anyhow, a lot of these shops are just replacing them anyhow because they are that cheap. So the problem with this one is that the transmission works, but it's leaking. So I'll show you the leak, and we're going to try and stop that leak. So before I do anything here, I'm using my oil extractor, and I've got the mower kind of tilted to the right, and I'm just kind of sucking out the remaining oil from it. And I think we're getting pretty close to the bottom here. That way when I flip it over to work on the transmission, there won't be oil getting into the block and all that. And that sweet sound is the sound of no oil in there. So there's a look at that transmission, and as you can see, there's some oil coming out of it. I'm not real sure where it's coming from. It could be where the case separates, but if I were going to guess, I would probably say it's probably the seals that have gone bad, where the shaft rotates on both ends. And this end looks a little more oily, so I'm thinking maybe that seal might be the problem. But who knows, it could be cracked. This is just plastic. So to get this thing off, as you can see, I have one tire removed, and you have to take the belt off the hub here. So there's an adapter. I took off the blades, I took off the adapter, and I was able to work the belt off the pulley, and that belt is attached back here to our transmission. I took off one tire. I'll show you how to go through the series and remove all these little snap rings and things like that on the other tire that I haven't removed. And if you look here, this plate is actually welded, or it has a really heavy rivet, so it's not removable. So I'm hoping that this would just slide out now that the belt is taken off there. So I'm going to flip it over, and we'll remove the other wheel and all the same snap rings, and we'll see if that allows us to remove our transmission with the shafts. Little quick tip for you. As I said, I pulled the oil out of this thing. The gas tank, as you can see, was pretty full, so I didn't realize a little bit of gas was coming out through the lid. So a little tip for you, if you don't want to drain the gas, you could just put a plastic bag over there and then screw that thing back on, and no gas is going to leak out. That works really well with the snow blowers when they're in the service position. So now we'll tip this up and get off this back wheel. So up here is the snap ring. So I just cleaned that off, hopefully enough that I can pull this thing off. And there we go, we have it removed. and then the sprocket comes off. And there is a very small keyway that comes out. It happens to be on the back side. And be careful, it's spring loaded. There's a spring actually inside there. So that all gets pulled off. So the next things that are on here, there's like a washer that's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And then there's a snap ring again, same size as this one that was up here. And then there's a bearing. And that's basically what's on this side of the shaft. And also there's a very thin washer between the bearing and the snap ring. So I'm just going to remove all that. So at this point I have the wheel off. I know the lighting's not great, but this whole shaft is free to move. But unfortunately I'm hitting these baffles in here. So we're going to have to find the screw heads and get these bolts pulled out so that we can remove the baffle, because I think they're going to be in the way. So there looks like there's 2 baffles I want to try and get out. Well, from what I could see, it looked like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these bolts that need to be pulled to get this baffle off, and I think this is the last one. Alright, so we're in there. A lot of grass too. And I know that there's a spring in there because there's a lot of tension, so I see that spring back there, so that's good. That'll give us access. And we also have the cable, which you can see up there. That needs to be disconnected. Alright guys, I ended up having to pull 2 more baffles out of this thing. So I've been farting around with this thing for like a half an hour probably so far, just trying to get these baffles out. And when you film, it always goes a little slower. I released this cable, just squeezed the sides and unclipped it. I released the spring. There's still 1 cable connected there that I'm not quite sure how that feeds into the transmission, but I think at this point, with all the baffles moved, I can slide the transmission down. So I just the thing's bottoming out on my table, so I think I'll jack this up. I only need about another inch or so till this will pop out. Oh, there goes the little man. A lot of you guys have been asking how he's doing with his leukemia, and I'm just thrilled to report that he's doing great. He's out running around today, and he's a year into treatment and has another about 2.5 years. So thanks for asking, thanks for praying, and yeah, I'm just thrilled that he's doing really well, so thank you. Alright, I'm just gonna pop this thing out. It's kind of hard to film. Okay guys, I got it all out of there. It was a little tight sliding it out through here, so what I ended up doing is loosening these 2 bolts so that this would move a little bit, and I was able to wiggle it out. And then once I got it out, I was trying to figure out how the last cable was connected, and there's a screw here, but this pulley was on top like this. So I got it out and just kind of set it here like this, and I worked off this pulley. And if you look at the pulley, there's a hole here, and they have one of these sleeves that needs to be actually knocked out. So what I did is I used a drift punch here, a 3/16, and I put that through the hole on the pulley, and I was able to knock out the pin. And that thing was in there really tight, and that pin just goes right through the shaft on this transmission. So now all I have to do, it looks like, is remove the screw, and I can get the control wire. This is for your speed. I can take that off of here, and then I can clean up this transmission, and hopefully I can get parts for it. I really should have looked at that before I pulled it off. I looked up the transmission. It's $205 plus shipping, so that's why I'm opting to fix this one. I don't really need this lawnmower, but I think it's I like taking on new jobs and learning new things, so I just figured I'd pull this one out of here. I have another video on how to fix a Honda HR-214 transmission, and I can tell you it's a lot easier to remove that transmission than this one. And I happen to have one of these right here in the shop. This one is what the 214 looks like. It has this metal deck. This one I just happen to be putting a new tire on. These rims, they actually are made that you just replace the rubber. This one has a crack, so I got a new tire, and you keep the rim. So yeah, I didn't even know they did that. But I'm gonna make video 2 here, and video 2 will be on you know, how I go about this rebuild, if I can even get parts. I think I want to just get some seals in the main gasket and try and figure out what type of oil's in there. So anyhow, I'm double wide 6. If you have a Honda lawnmower, on the bottom of this video I will put a link to how to get a really cheap carburetor for these things, and you can get that through Amazon. So I'll put that in the bottom of the video. Check it out, and please rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It's mower season. Thanks for watching.